Podcasting is big in the software as a service world and can be a great source of generating leads and sales for SaaS businesses. If you're building something in the SaaS space, then these podcasts are perfect if you want to hear inspiring stories and learn from people who are top of their game when it comes to building SaaS products. You can implement a lot of these strategies when building your own product or SaaS business. So here's my rundown of 10 of the best SaaS podcasts that are out there at the moment. And if you're looking to get involved with these, then stick around to the end of this video because I want to share with you how you can actually get booked on these podcasts as a guest. Number 10, Code Story. Code Story is a podcast featuring tech leaders reflecting the roads they travelled and the products they created. It's hosted by co-founder and CTO of Veryable, Noah Labhart, and is a window into the digital startup world. In their own worlds, tech veterans share what it feels like to create a world-class product, how to recover from critical mistakes, and how to scale a solution to the masses. In one of my favourite episodes, Noah talks to Hazel Savage about how her company Musio is changing the face of the music industry with the help of AI.
I've got us access to about 200,000 tracks. And with that initial set of tracks, we would drop one track as like a seed track into the database. And we would just ask the AI to pull the most similar tracks based on the fingerprint. I think we sort of set it running and went out for lunch. And when we came back, we found that the 10 tracks that it had pulled back as a playlist were fantastic. And I was like, oh, wow, this really works. My name's Hazel Savage and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Musio.
Number 9, Scaling SaaS Operations. Join Christine Esparza as she reveals best practice tools, tips and processes for rapidly scaling up operations within SaaS startups. Discover new ways to automate, develop efficiencies, and align your teams to create a more positive and consistent experience for customers. Alongside occasional solo episodes, Christine also hosts in-depth interviews with SaaS founders and other industry experts. In one of their latest episodes, CEO of Emerge, Jonathan Hensley, talks about growing up in Silicon Valley and how it really inspired him to get into the digital transformation and product space.
A little over 20 years ago, became absolutely fascinated by the way that technology changes people's behavior. And I had grown up in a household of psychologists. So understanding human behavior and how people think and how it informs what they do was just something that was a common conversation that we would have. And it just absolutely inspired the whole trajectory of my career.
Number 8, Marketing Spark. Marketing Spark focuses on short 25-minute interviews with B2B SaaS marketers and entrepreneurs about life in the trenches and lessons learned. The show is hosted by marketing expert Mark Evans, and each episode dives deep into one particular topic, e.g. how to hire a marketing leader, how to create content marketing machine, or how to effectively drive cold outreach. Check out the latest episode where copywriter Jules Dan tells us why he sometimes encourages people to unsubscribe from his mailing list.
I'm just wondering why email has staying power. I mean, every time you think that we're at the end of email or email is going to lose effectiveness or that marketers aren't going to use email as often, it keeps on going. Can you explain that?
It has something to do with, I don't know why, but everyone just loves checking their emails. Something to do with just like, oh, I've got this notification, I have to open it. And I don't know what the statistics are, but it's if you check out HubSpot, it's something crazy. So many people check their email. So the fact that they're checking it and then we're able to at least deliver a message to that medium, to that media, I think it's really powerful.
Number 7, SaaS Startup Stories. This podcast is for those who are interested in starting or buying their own SaaS company, but are scared to pull the trigger. The podcast aims to provide listeners with the answers they need by interviewing CEOs of software companies and asking them the right questions, from how they got off the ground in the very beginning to how they've managed to grow the business since. Check out episode number 13, where a very familiar guest talks about how he grew and scaled his businesses in the audio and podcasting space.
Hi everyone, this is Scott Dudley from SaaS Startup Stories, and today my special guest is James Mulvaney, who's based in Manchester in the UK. He's the founder and CEO at radio.co, podcast.co, and also matchmaker.fm, which are a suite of programs created for podcasters and audio producers. Welcome to the show, James. You ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, sure am. Thanks very much for having me. I then decided to sort of create a platform because we had more and more customers who were coming to us who weren't necessarily what you'd imagine to be like traditional radio stations. The products we sold through wave streaming were quite technical. So we thought, let's build a sort of super easy to use platform and sort of model it, around the sort of software as a service, business model. Launched that July 2015, really successful, very, very quickly. We grew to, I think, 1,000 users within our first year of operation. Number 6, SaaS Breakthrough, an inside look at what's working in marketing today for SaaS companies by the marketers who are actually in the trenches. So the show speaks to a range of guests who are experimenting on a daily basis to build their monthly recurring revenue and create an amazing business. The show is hosted by David Abrams, co-founder of Demio, a webinar platform built to help marketing and customer education teams effectively scale their efforts in less time. In one of their recent episodes, Director of Marketing at Empire Flippers, Gregory Elfink, explained a concept he calls content moat.
Another quick conference tip for networking. I highly recommend, instead of just taking someone's business card, connect with them on the social media platform of your choice, whatever you tend to use. So for me, it's Facebook and LinkedIn. And every time you post something on LinkedIn or Facebook, obviously you should be genuine and always be you. Like I post poetry and fiction on my Facebook because I'm really into literature. But every time you post stuff on there, you are passively nurturing that relationship you built at that conference without really any extra work on your part.
Number 5, SaaS District. Learn how to optimize your growth strategy from beta all the way to exit. The show addresses such a wide range of topics such as investing, acquisitions, leadership, B2B sales, growth marketing, scaling, hiring, conversion optimization, productivity, bootstrapping, venture capital, private equity, and more. And that's a lot of stuff to get into one podcast. In one of my favorite episodes, the host of the podcast, is Akil Jabber, discusses the core principles that every SaaS founder should know. So this one's worth a listen.
We're just in adding more and more features to make the product more usable, better, give you, better results when it comes to your SEO. The Chrome extension has been growing. We made a lot of updates there as well too. And in November, I think we released our first version of SEO automation where we try to do the SEO for you automatically.
Number 4, the 0 to 5 million podcast. Co-hosts Sean Finder and Ollie Whitfield interview founders, CEOs, and revenue leaders from businesses between 0 and 5 million in annual recurring revenue to find out how they did it. They're currently looking for relevant guests from the SaaS industry who are willing to honestly share the wins and the losses they've experienced and important lessons that they've learned along the way. Back in May, the hosts shared their cold calling horror stories, which was one of my favourite episodes and made for some great listening.
It was Adrian and I in the boardroom, having way more demos than we can handle in a day. We originally, it was an hour demos, lowered those to 45 minutes. About a month later, lowered those to 30 minutes. Man, I had to learn to do demos in 15 minutes because we just had so much demand for the product. And I couldn't train salespeople to do demos quick enough.
Number 3, SaaS Boss. Actionable advice from bootstrap SaaS founders, from expert coaches and consultants. This podcast touches on a range of topics, including scaling challenges, building remote teams, leadership, getting unstuck, personal growth, and more. The show is hosted by Natalie Laniva, who's got more than a decade of experience helping SaaS companies identify and implement high ROI opportunities. An episode worth listening to is with Helen Peatfield. She shares the 7 deadly sins that can kill your SaaS website conversion.
So there are some things that underpin good copy and good messaging for all SaaS businesses. In fact, pretty much all B2Bs. So that's what I wanted to touch on. So I'm going to just run through very quickly what we're going to touch on. These are the 7 deadly sins, but I'm going to go into more detail. So positioning, logic versus emotion, headlines, sloppy CTAs, imagery. Yes, I'm a copywriter. I can't design, but imagery is part of it. It's all part of the story. The promises you make and value gaps.
Number 2, Big Break Software Podcast. In the Big Break Software Podcast, host Geordie Wardman sits down and talks to top leaders in the software field. The show is all about learning from proven founders about their $0 to $30,000 in monthly recurring revenue journey and beyond. With a new episode released every Tuesday, Geordie has been consistently exploring the ins and outs of building a software company with some of the true experts in the field. Listen to this clip where business author Mike Michalot-Switch tells Geordie how entrepreneurs can give back without breaking the bank.
I think, though, the most relevant part of my journey as an entrepreneur is my third business. I was an angel investor. I was investing in all these little startups. It was a calamity. I was a calamity. And those businesses collapsed. I actually lost all of the money I made selling my other companies in this disaster. And that became the great restart for me. I lost my home. I lost everything. Mm-hmm. And I actually went through depression for a period of time. And I remember reflecting on how little I knew about entrepreneurship, and decided to devote the rest of my life to investigating what actually makes entrepreneurship successful for me and what doesn't.
Number 1, Building Blocks with Brendan Herjavec. Every business comes from an idea. Every success story starts as a dream. Finding what makes something or someone great requires first understanding where it all started. Building Blocks speaks and interviews with these individuals to uncover not only how they got started, but where they are going, and hopes to understand how these influential people can change the landscape of tomorrow. Hear the fascinating story of Mark Wadler and his company Sustainable, a company that transformed beer waste into premium baked goods, including cookies, waffles, and banana bread.
The biggest disruption in the beer industry has been craft beer in the last kind of 5 to 10 years. It's taken off, and craft breweries are located in urban centers, as opposed to like the larger breweries will operate on the fringe. And so any breweries that are on the fringe, typically their byproduct can go to like animal feed and stuff like that, because they're co-located close to farm animals. But farmers don't want to come in. Like you've lived in Vancouver for a bit. Farmer getting into the city, coming and grabbing that spanker and getting back out, like that's a journey. They're stuck in traffic. They don't want to do that. So oftentimes it does just get wasted.
So those are my top 10 software as a service podcasts. If I've missed any out, let me know in the comments below. What are your favorite SaaS podcasts? And also, if you're keen to get involved with any of these podcasts, they're all looking for guests. So perhaps you've got your own SaaS stories that you'd like to share with the world. If that's the case, then head on to matchmaker.fm. It's free to join. It's a community to connect podcasters with guests. And all of the podcasts I've just mentioned are currently listed on matchmaker.fm, so go and check them out on there. Finally, if you found this video useful, remember to hit that subscribe button and ping, turn on your notifications, because I'm producing content and releasing videos like this every single Friday. All right, take it easy. I'll speak to you soon. Hey, wait, before you go, perhaps you're looking to start a podcast for your business. And did you know that most businesses make the same exact mistakes? Whenever we work with clients who are struggling to get their podcast off the ground, or they're not getting the traction that they deserve, it turns out that most of the time they're making the same mistake. So what I've done is I've compiled a guide, which is called the 5-Step Business Podcast Checklist, which will show you exactly what you need to know to get your podcast up and running without making the same mistakes that most other people do. So you can download it for free at jamesm.com/podcast. That's jamesm.com/podcast. Go and grab your copy today.